Barry here from Team Wilpers, excited per usual to welcome you here to our athlete briefing for week 8 of the half marathon challenge here in 2025. Per usual, we're going to start with our week 7 review. So starting the week again with yet another endurance run here, keeping that volume nice and high as we come into these final few weeks, continuing to, of course, build that big aerobic engine. So I'm feeling really great for all of you about that higher volume and longer runs. For me, that makes such a big difference when getting comfortable to go and attack these long distance races. Got that big run up front. Going to our key run number 2, which was that progression run. So spending quite a big chunk of time there at zone 3, working on really digging in and holding that pace for a sustained period of time. Is an outstanding race prep workout, getting really ready to tackle that event here in a couple weeks. And finishing up the week with a long run, we have 9 to 11 miles. Most people probably still have that on deck here for the weekend. So we're talking about some real serious mileage here. I know last week we talked about just really prioritizing this workout, making sure that all your ducks in a row, you're rested, you're fresh. You're gonna really put your full focus into this. This is a really great opportunity to get out, kind of have a little mini dress rehearsal for your race here coming up. Little bit of housekeeping here is for those who are going to be in New York City for the New York City Half Marathon weekend. Just want to make sure you're aware that on Saturday the 15th at 10 a.m. we'll be having our shakeout run leaving from the southwest corner of Central Park, which is in basically Columbus Circle. So we'll certainly post some details on exactly where that is and exactly where that meetup is. So whether you're running the race in town, supporting, cheering, none of the above, but going to be here and we would love to say hi, get to see you in person, run a few miles before the big race on Sundays. Certainly come out. So once more time, that is Saturday the 15th at 10 o'clock a.m. Hope to see as many of you there as possible. So now let's jump into the week 8 workout. So one more time here, we're starting the week with our endurance run, this time putting a few little strides in there. So we're keeping the volume we've built in the previous few weeks. As I mentioned, I love keeping that volume high in these final few training weeks leading into our kind of pullback here. What we're trying to do by adding those strides is trying to work on turnover late in the run. What I see a lot of times that athletes from all levels is fatigue sets in. As you get deeper into the run, you'll start to see the kind of cadence drop off, start to see this kind of heavy leg feeling. So we don't want that. We don't want that because the feet turning over, foot contact on ground is where you create power. That's how you get speed and how you keep moving forward. So when people start to lose cadence late in the race, you're starting to lose efficiency, you're starting to lose speed, obviously. So these striders are just little opportunities at the end of an endurance run to really work on that turnover, try to make sure that when you're starting to get tired, you're starting to carry a little bit of that fatigue, you can still get the leg speed that you need to finish hard. So don't skip over these, don't kind of belittle it. They're kind of a small part of the workout, but a very valuable drill kind of built into this that you can prioritize once again to try to stay fresh and make sure you're getting that turnover late in your races. Key run number 2, half marathon pace interval run. Another great opportunity to practice half marathon pace. Here in week 7, we had that progression run. Talked about that being an amazing race prep opportunity, and it is. But as we discussed, that is a long hold tempo. It gives you some ability to kind of go fast, go slow, settle back in, miss, etc. Here coming into week 8, we're going to kind of come in and out of that pace a little bit. So this not only gets us a lot of good quality training time at zone, but it gives us an opportunity to really focus in on those little individual intervals and make sure that we're really nailing those pace targets. Once again, progression run, we want to be accurate, of course, but there is some fluctuation. There are some corrections we can make along the way to kind of settle in. These, I want you to really get specific about the race pace that you plan to use for your race itself. It was an awesome opportunity because of the kind of start and stop nature of it to not only have good quality intervals, but to really focus on what that pace feels like, how you can quickly find it, something that's going to be important right at the start of the race, starting to get dialed in on it, what it feels like on your body, etc. These are all things that you can be super focused on during this workout here. They're going to help really, directly translate to success in your race here in a few weeks' time. So within the intervals, because sometimes I'll say kind of start low, ease up into it, but we want you to try to really focus on settling into that pace early without overshooting, and then really cruise through the interval. So it's a pace that obviously we've been sustaining in this progression run here in week 7 for somewhere between like 20 and 30 minutes based upon the structure of that workout. We start breaking it down into these little smaller sections. Shouldn't be too much of an issue to hold that pace for that period of time, especially if you're not overrunning the interval. So I want you to try to find it quickly, really settle in, and then cruise through the interval. There we go. So relatively generous recovery time for this style of workout. So the goal is to take advantage of the recovery time, certainly, but to come back in, really feel comfortable and confident holding that pace, not overshooting it one more time, and hopefully you'll leave the workout feeling really ready, really comfortable with that race pace going into our final kind of week and a half there. The long run maxes out next week with our long run of 10 to 12 miles. So this will be as far as we go in this progression. So the long run peaks here in week 8. We'll drop it off a little bit in week 9. Obviously the race is at the end of week 10. So as discussed in coming into this long run here in this week, but things that are going to be true again here in week 8 is you want to practice the race kit, the things that you plan to wear. You want to practice your pre-run breakfast. You want to practice your intra-workout nutrition and hydration. Don't leave these things up for experimentation on race day. It seems small, but it can literally ruin a race day, the smallest little thing. I was having to talk about it earlier, and I can share a personal story where I remember I was pacing a friend in Disney, actually, for the half marathon. That was his first half marathon that he chose. And I was running relatively easy for me, my easy pace. I grabbed these Jelly Belly sport beans, which seemed like a great idea at the time. Love Jelly Bellies, love candy in general in the middle of the race, eating a lot of it during ultra running. I popped about 4 of these things at mile 8 during the race, thinking nothing of it. To say the least, the last 2 or 3 miles, he was basically having to carry me during this thing because it was something I wasn't used to. Shouldn't have taken it. Should have figured it out in training. So let me be the poor example there and make sure that you incorporate those things into your training. Don't save it to race day. So whatever you do on both here in week 7 and week 8, the things that you do right now in these training runs should be exactly what you do on your half marathon day. Right, wrong, or indifferent at that point, you want as much consistency as possible going from training to racing. I'll jump in here to one important question that came up from the week. So if I missed last week's long run, should I just pick up and get back on plan? I've had so many illnesses during this training cycle. And so I feel every year, of course, this is cold and flu season. I feel like this year about as much as ever, I've had athletes not only go down, but go down for really extended periods of time with this flu strain that's out there. And so the answer to this question is going to be a little bit dependent upon how you've been feeling about your training, what your comfort level is with the distance. But we all have these scenarios in which we lose a couple weeks, lose a week or 2 weeks with being ill, travel, injury, etc. And we have to figure out how to get back in. And so once again, if you've been feeling great, then yeah, I think you can probably jump right back in here. If you're ultimately comfortable with the distance, if you have experience with this distance, you might be able to just kind of maybe end on, if you're on the high end of the last progression, maybe come in at the low end of the upcoming progression. If you're in the middle, kind of stick to the middle, etc. But yeah, I think you might be able to pop right back in. If this is a new distance to you, if you've been struggling to kind of get up to this distance, if it's not something you're familiar with, I don't think I would go ahead just because the plan goes ahead. It might be worth going back and trying to complete the week 7 distance. And if it really took a lot out of you and you're energetically not 100%, it might be worth even going back a little bit further and trying to have a good, strong, comfortable run. I think it's important to remember in these scenarios that these workouts are built to support you and build you up. But if you take the workout too far and you're not prepared for it, then ultimately the recovery time from that workout is going to set you back more than it pushed you forward. So you have to make sure you meet yourself where you are energy-wise and both training-wise. And 10 times out of 10, I'd rather have an athlete healthy and undertrained at the starting line than the other way around. So be careful in this scenario. And like I said, if things are going great, jump right back in and go right ahead to that peak distance. If you've been kind of struggling a little bit or are kind of a little bit behind the 8 ball and trying to kind of get up to those high numbers, that's okay. Meet yourself where you are, maybe repeat your highest distance so far, potentially, like I said, even back it off a little bit to what feels conceivable now. Week 8 is going to be our peak long run, but it's, once again, much better to meet yourself where you are today instead of trying to just push it for the sake of pushing it. Save that for race day, that one big effort. It can still be a very pleasant, very manageable day there. But as I mentioned, I think probably an important thing to keep in mind just for all athletes coming into week 8, I know I mentioned it before, but that long run, that week 8 long run will be the pinnacle long run of this challenge program. So whatever goal you were hoping to get up to distance-wise, to feel comfortable, to feel confident going into the half marathon distance, that's what you're going to want to achieve here in week 8. And I've seen athletes do it all the way from an 8-mile peak to a 16-mile peak in a half marathon training program. So it's a very wide range of what can work and what can be successful. And once again, you have to kind of meet yourself where you are. And then of course, make your race plan and expectations kind of in alignment with your training block there. So hopefully that helps. Otherwise, certainly keep asking about it on Facebook. Make sure to jump in and try to answer those comments. Otherwise, that's all we have here for week 8. Thanks as always for being here. Can't wait for you to finish out the week 7 strong, finish the main part of our training block here in week 8, and then we start to back off a little bit and really get race ready. So very exciting times. Thanks again, and I'll see you back here soon.